A lot of us think of video games as something that brings us an interesting new experience, something immersive and something cool. But for some, these virtual realms transform lives and shape reality. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 times video games saved the world. Now, I'll go ahead and just quickly say before we start, there is no asteroid that I am aware of headed to collide with Earth and destroy all human life, and if there was, video games couldn't fix that. We're talking about some stories of extraordinary triumphs and shattered barriers, starting off with this one at number 10. A Twitch streamer by the name of Lucent Beam, who does something akin to what the Sherpa community in Destiny does. It's a term for basically the same thing a Sherpa does in real life, except for rather than a mountain, it's the video game Destiny. Destiny 2 at this point. But Lucent Beam did something not quite the same, because she believed there were people out there playing the game that don't read Reddit and therefore can't participate in the Sherpa community because that's where it's organized. So she would go and find people who were either low level or hadn't done raids or whatever and had large amounts of hours playing the game. And this led her to a retired man who found solace in the game after, let's just put it this way, a sequence of unfortunate events. He had both his wife, his son, and others pass away. He was left raising his granddaughter, which I'm sure brought some degree of joy, obviously, to his life. But as this nice old man talked about, this game keeps his brain sharp. Lucent Beam messaged him after, doing a little research, finding somebody who she thought was appropriate to approach, and he ended up talking to her about how the game kind of became his sanctuary. This man experienced a pretty dark time in his life, at a time when you're really just supposed to be enjoying the fruits of your labor throughout the many decades you've been alive. Destiny got him through, and, well, the Destiny community ended up raising a bunch of money to send him to Guardian Con, and it really shows just how much a single game can do for somebody experienced loneliness and loss. At number 9, an incident where a Texan gamer was talking to a British gamer, Texan by the name of Dia Lithoria, British gamer by the name of Aiden Jackson. They were on playing games and chatting, as one does, when suddenly Aiden became unresponsive and made sounds that Dia described as what she could only describe as a seizure. So she leapt into action. She knew what town that he lived in and apparently had some contact information. And she was able to contact the authorities in town, which were able to get an ambulance to his house and get him to the hospital. His parents didn't even realize that anything was going on until the authorities showed up. They thought he was just up in his room playing games. It was apparently the second time this happened, too. Not the second time his American friend Dia called the authorities, but the second seizure he had since he'd been hospitalized some months earlier. The family was obviously very thankful to Dia Lithoria, and it's certainly a touching story where a video game may have saved somebody's life. At number 8, some Pokemon Go players saved some abandoned animals, and not a few of them. A couple of Pokemon Go players by the name of Sarah Perez and Matthew Teague were Pokemon going to the park, attempting to capture some of the rare pocket monsters. They ended up finding something completely different, though. They found a cage of 20 hamsters and 7 newborn mice, abandoned in the park in a day that apparently was extreme when it comes to heat, and without water to boot. Obviously, that is not good for a bunch of little creatures simply exposed to sunlight through the bars of a cage. These two players took the hamsters and rats to the Houston SPCA, who then took them in and cared for them. Now, Sarah Perez said she wanted to be able to take some of them in herself, but she had a number of animals that would have made it unsafe. First being 2 dogs and the second being a pet snake. But it's definitely because of these gamers playing Pokemon Go together that these animals were taken care of when they were ultimately left to simply die. At number 7, an 11-year-old boy named Charlie Cullen saved his 79-year-old grandfather's life using stuff he learned in Grand Theft Auto. You know, the game that they continually blame for killing people. So his grandfather blacked out behind a steering wheel, and that prompted Charlie, who played Grand Theft Auto, to take control of the car. Now, his grandfather had his foot basically cement bricked onto the accelerator, so they were going however fast they were going. I assume not slow, but Charlie was able to maneuver back onto the road after going off and navigated it through traffic to get pretty near their home, where they did crash, but not in traffic where it would have been a total disaster. They did get minor injuries, obviously. I mean, you don't crash your car without expectation of at least getting kinda hurt. But compared to what could have happened, this was incredible. At number 6, in the Philippines, the video game Counter-Strike was credited for saving 3 local children's lives. If you see the newspaper, it's absolutely hilarious. It says, "Violent video games saved kids." I mean, I have to note that it's just really funny that these supposed enders of society, these violent video games, have actually racked up a few saves in terms of civilian lives. So what happened was, in the Philippines, a few young children found some active grenades. And before any conversation, they initiated playing with them, because obviously, if you don't know what a grenade is, maybe you think it's a ball, maybe you think it's some kind of sports apparatus or something. I don't know. A 12-year-old boy by the name of Jose Darwin Garciano, however, did know what they were and said, "Hey, don't play with those. Those are grenades. I know what those are from Counter-Strike. Don't play with them. They can explode and kill you." So the kids told a resident that was apparently nearby, who informed police, who sent a special weapons team to recover the grenades and, make sure nobody blew up. Apparently the grenades were in a biscuit container. So I don't know what was going on in this little town in the Philippines, but these kids were all pretty lucky that their friend Jose played Counter-Strike. At number 5, a 10-year-old saved his grandma's life with a little help from Mario Kart. So a 10-year-old from Colorado by the name of Griffin Sanders did something very similar to the kid that saved his grandpa. So he was in the car with his grandmother, and his grandmother, who was 74 at the time, lost consciousness, seemingly from a heart attack. So Griffin tried to wake up his grandmother and then realized, wait, that's not gonna happen. I'm gonna have to drive here, but I'm just a kid and I don't know how to drive. What is the closest experience to that I have? Oh, Mario Kart. So he used what he learned in Mario Kart, and what he did was, probably about as good as a decision as he could make, in that he took the car that was going at about 60 miles per hour and drove it into a muddy ditch on the side of the road. Why? Because going 60 miles per hour with traffic is a lot more hazardous than slowing down in mud, maybe even getting stuck. That's actually pretty smart. An adult might have been able to get grandma enough out of the way that you could pull the car to the shoulder, but a kid, you really don't know what a kid's going to be able to do. These kids, honestly, it's hard to think of them in a way other than heroic. Rather than succumbing to fear and possibly getting killed, they took a relative experience to something that they know and used it to save multiple lives, their own and their grandparent. At number 4, a Norwegian boy averted a moose attack in which his sister was the prime target, using stuff that he learned in World of Warcraft. It's pretty wild, this one. I think this one's one that you're gonna find pretty amazing. So Hans Jorgen Olsen, who was 12, and his sister, who was younger, were walking through the woods and got attacked by a moose. Now, the prime target of the moose, like I said, was his sister, who was younger and probably hadn't played World of Warcraft. So what Hans did actually was pretty wild. He taunted the animal. I don't know exactly what the nature of the taunting was, as it's not listed in the article, but even though it's not World of Warcraft, the very first thing I think of is that goofy Fortnite L dance. I don't know, it's funny to imagine people doing that at a moose. It was probably something from World of Warcraft, though, obviously. Anyways, the next thing he did was actually another World of Warcraft move, because the moose attacked him, and his response was to play dead. By playing dead, the moose just eventually got bored and went away. Moose aren't really carnivores in any way, so obviously there's not really a lot for the moose to do anymore from that point. And by the time that became the problem, his sister had gotten away. So, good on Hans. It's really smart thinking. At number 3, Probably one of the last things you'd expect to help stroke patients is a video game developed specifically for them, but that's what Recovery Rapids is. A means to help people regain mobility and independence in the comfort of their own homes. So basically, the patient/player embarks on a virtual river journey. Now, that's not the whole game. Essentially, the river is a means to get to various mini-games, which require the usage of affected limbs, mental faculties, etc., in order to complete. So the idea is that this is an alternative to traditional physical therapy that costs significantly less. Now, there's no real reason we need to talk about the nonsense of the medical system and why you would need something that costs less, but it's also very effective. Between regular telemedicine visits as well as playing the game, a study actually showed that people experience meaningful gains in motor activity that you would actually consider comparable to that of normal, traditional, in-person physical therapy. I would say if that's not video games saving the world in its own way, very few things are. At number 2, a Razer headset was all that stood between a gamer and a stray bullet that ricocheted around their bedroom. Reddit user EnoughDance956, an 18-year-old gamer from California, posted that they were trying to get a hold of someone at Razer because a stray bullet went through his window, ricocheted off of a wall, and then ricocheted again off of the Razer headphones that he was wearing, rather than going into his head. This happened to be posted April 1st, 2022, so it was met with a lot of skepticism. So EnoughDance956 posted a second post with photos of everything, including the bullet hole in the window, the ricochet mark off of his wall, and of course, the headphones where the bullet hit him. He found the bullet on his bed, turned it over to the police, and was extremely happy and thankful to Razer, who I'm sure was probably very thankful for the positive publicity that was generated by a post that people thought was an April Fool's trick that turned out to be completely real. It got plenty of attention due to the controversy and just turned out to be completely real. This kid was alive thanks to a pair of headphones that were apparently made well enough to withstand a hit from a bullet. Now, that's not to say this is the device that you should lean on a tour of duty in Afghanistan or something. A lot of that was probably pure luck, but still, that's awesome. And finally, at number 1, scientists attempted to solve the structure of a retrovirus enzyme for more than a decade, and in 2011, gamers did it. Now, I don't know specifically why a puzzle game was made about protein folding. Perhaps it was specifically to entice gamers to attempt to solve things that scientists couldn't. In fact, that's seemingly exactly what the University of Washington actually designed this thing for, which is, not explicitly stated anywhere here, but look into the game. That's what this is. They're outsourcing their work to gamers. Anyway, it worked because they solved it. Yep, after failing for a decade, scientists leaned on gamers and gamers delivered. And no joke, their proper modeling of this enzyme actually provided them with a lot of information that was necessary for creating a lot of retroviral drugs, including ones that fight AIDS, which, as you know, was one of the world's biggest problems. It just goes to show you, gamers are good at solving puzzles, even nature's puzzles, if you can structure them like a game. That's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on gameranx.